Hi, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Spurs Up Show. This is episode 11 of the Spurs Up Show. We will be previewing the defense today. Tyler, we're just 30 days away from kickoff, getting closer and closer by the day. First off, if you do want to follow the show, we are on iTunes at the Spurs Up Show. Please be sure to go there, rate and subscribe. Leave us your comments. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like about the show. We appreciate all feedback. You can also follow us on our Twitter account at Armchair SCAR. That's Armchair SCAR. You can also follow us on Instagram. We're actually now in the Instagram game. Our username there is actually Armchair S Carolina. So be sure to go follow the Instagram page there. And also, the Spurs Up Show is a podcast brought to you by Armchair All-Americans. Armchair All-Americans, localizing your sports content experience. Be sure to go to armchairallamericans.com and check out the Spurs Up Show there, as well as our South Carolina content and breaking news as well. So as always, like I said, I'm Chris Phillips. I'm joined today, as always, with my colleague Tyler Clark. Tyler, how's everything going? How you been the last week, and how you feeling a week closer to football?
I've been really well. I'm really excited because, like I said last week, we're starting to get to this point where we get this media availability every day. We get to talk to players every day, and it kind of just holds you over. It doesn't even matter what they say. It's just something to watch and something to keep up with.
Yeah, fall practice is back. Fall practice kicked off on Monday. Everybody's been going through practice, media availability like we were just talking about with T-Rob today. Muschamp has spoken, a lot of different players. So some really, really exciting stuff. And like you said, just enough to hold us over through preseason football with the NFL and into the first week of kickoff of college football. But going to jump into the defense in just a second. Want to touch on a couple of new commitments South Carolina actually picked up over the last week. So Muschamp and company still doing great work. Marlon Character is a defensive back transferring from junior college to South Carolina. He actually spent his freshman season at Auburn. Was a guy that I know he was committed to Will Muschamp, or he was committed to South Carolina at first, then actually flipped to Auburn. Really good pickup, I think, in Marlon Character. I've seen some of his tape, and I think he's a guy Muschamp and the coaches are really high on. So definitely good for the South Carolina to finally get their guy in him, get another guy for the secondary depth. Gibson with a P, Jonathan Gibson, another defensive back commit. He's actually the second defensive back commit of the class. For the 2018 class, 17th overall commit. Actually picked South Carolina over Tennessee and Indiana. Tyler, watching his tape, I know that I actually listened to Muschamp talk about him a little bit. He's a good corner. They really like him at safety, though. Really, brings the wood. He's a really hard hitter, kind of a headhunter. So just, kind of how we started the show last week, sort of recapping another week. I'd say a successful week in recruiting from Muschamp and company.
Definitely. I'm really excited that we're starting to see. We were talking about it a couple weeks ago. I don't know if it was on the show or not. But we were talking about how a lot of these guys that we're getting commits from are like wide receivers or offensive guys, and now we're starting to see these defensive guys, and it's really exciting because that's Will Muschamp's bread and butter. And the more we get, the merrier, because Lord knows we need the depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And just watching the tape from Gibson, he looks like a guy like a, I don't want to say a DJ Swearinger quite yet.
That's what I read. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of a guy that South Carolina's been missing, that headhunter in the secondary and somebody to really, is a intimidating back there, and it's really going to be a threat. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. But just great to see week after week. This staff is putting in work. Like you said, it's great to see, Muschamp getting his defensive guys, and there will be guys all throughout the fall that will be committing and everything as well. That the South Carolina will actually have a couple chances to get. I know, not off the top of my head, I really don't know by a name basis. That we've been tweeting about it, had it on our social media, but South Carolina's in the running for a couple 5-star outside linebacker, defensive end type guys, a couple 4-stars as well. So there's a lot of guys coming for this South Carolina class that, could really shift the class one way or the other as far as, how good the class could be. So like we said, we are going to preview the defense today after previewing the offense last week. Just a little bit of recap of how year one of the Will Muschamp era went. The stress, obviously, Tyler, was, effort, toughness, and discipline. It was kind of a mixed bag last year, I thought. Mostly probably bad, kind of bend but don't break, if you will. A unit gave up over 400 yards a game, 26 points per game. And really, really, Tyler, we've talked about before, obviously, struggled against the run, giving up 203 yards per game. Really, teams, I think their passing stats were so good because teams just knew they could run the ball on us. So It's going to be a real challenge this year, especially with some of the lack of depth at defensive line, the lack of depth at linebacker, even with the talent there to improve upon those numbers. South Carolina losing 5 of its top 9 tacklers. However, they are getting linebacker Sky Moore back, as we've talked about before, which is a huge boost. And I think South Carolina does return a good core of players in the secondary, but it's all going to be up to the defensive line to generate a pass rush and plug those holes, in the running game. So Tyler, looking back at 2016 and kind of looking ahead now, we're about to kick off 2017. How do you feel now versus, last year? Do you feel like we're in a better place defensively, kind of the same or worse?
Oh man, I think it's better. Like you were saying, their little moniker, the effort, toughness, and discipline. I feel like last year the effort was there, but the toughness and discipline wasn't there. And I think it was more of a talent and experience combination that hurt them a lot. And we were talking about the T-Rob media availability today. He talked about how much tougher they've gotten. Their team speed has gone up. There's just so much stuff they've done in the offseason. And he was talking about how much they've hung out as a unit, and like they're all best friends and stuff like that. That's the type of stuff you need on a unit. And if they can get better in that aspect and work together a little bit better, I think they can have a much better season.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And I definitely think from year one for a coaching staff, no matter where you're at, especially the situation Muschamp came into with, the whole Spurrier debacle with him leaving. Anyways, is always tough. You're kind of trying to get a core guys or group of guys to kind of buy into your system. And, I definitely think there's more of a comfort level this year. Everybody's pretty much bought in. You just hear about all the work ethic and everything. And definitely, like I said, getting Sky Moore back and sort of a senior veteran leadership, is definitely going to help. So I tend to agree with you. I definitely think there's going to be room for improvement this year. I mean, there obviously is, but jumping right into it with that defensive line, I mean, we've heard Muschamp obviously talk about the front seven, and, it's an area that's got to stay healthy. I mean, it's one of the more thin areas on the defense, but it's going to be one of the most important position groups as well. You lose Darius English from a season ago who had 9 sacks. Obviously his best season as a Gamecock. But he had 9 sacks on a team that only had 19.5 sacks total.
That's terrifying.
So, we've talked about in prior shows with the great South Carolina defenses. I think you said that Clowney had 13 by himself one year.
Yep.
Those defenses had like 42 sacks in a year. And, it's no wonder how good those defenses were. So, Muschamp has emphasized and stressed all fall and, even before that in the spring, but definitely in the fall, it's going to be up to the core, the leaders, the older guys, Ulrich Jones, Dante Sawyer, Taylor Stallworth, all to have big years. I'm really looking for Dante Sawyer to step up. He's been a solid player. He's been a solid player throughout his time here, but I really think it's time for Dante to really take the next step and kind of lead that defensive line and be that guy off the edge that they recruited him to be. So
I don't want to go off.
Also
but did you see Jonathan Walton got signed by the Saints the other day?
I actually did see that. Yeah, that was great. He was always a really solid player for us.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. I mean, obviously the sacks weren't there, but he was a guy that could get in the backfield on a lot of the run plays or chase guys out of the pocket. Obviously, I think we'll replace that this year, but he was really good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. And he kind of reminds me of a player we'll talk about in just a second. But, Tyler, the guy I'm kind of looking for, and you could sort of say, is he defensive line? Is he buck? What's his position? But, we've talked about, DJ Wanham is going to need to have a really big impact this year for that South Carolina defensive line. And he's not the only one. But I think he's a guy last year that really showed flashes of what he could do with his speed, with his size, with his strength in the pass rush. I just come to think of last year against Missouri. I remember Cole Kublik obviously is a guy we've talked about before that works for SEC Network, and he loves to tweet about defensive line and offensive line. And he actually had a tweet with a video, of DJ Wanham just bulldozing a guy back and getting a sack. So I
saw that. It was awesome.
Yeah, so DJ Wanham's the kind of guy that's going to need to to have an impact. I tell you what, Tyler, I don't know about you. I'll ask you your opinion. The guy that really has me hyped in fall camp right now, just a little bit that we're getting, they obviously haven't even put the pads on yet, but the guy that's got me hyped is Javon Kinlaw.
Oh, yes.
I
read a lot about him today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, anybody who's watched the videos, I'm sure you have, he is a big man.
330.
He is a big man. And T-Rob talked about it today in his media availability, saying he's a guy that takes up 2 blockers.
Yep,
so
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it's kind of, he almost, think about a Stanley Doty type, hopefully in a little better shape. But who are some guys you're looking for on the D line? Maybe we're not talking about to really step up, and how much do you think is going to be dependent on, maybe newcomers to come in and generate a pass rush?
I mean, I don't want to cheat off of the listener questions, but Shameik Blackshear is a guy I've heard a lot about, taking a lot of steps forward. So I'd like to see it out of him. But Javon Kinlaw is one of them. Brad Johnson coming in. He'll play a lot, I think. DJ Wanham, obviously, because I haven't seen coaches talk about
Sterling as well, I think, is another one.
Yeah.
Aaron Sterling, he's another one. It's going to be interesting because I feel like they've got a lot of pieces right now, but it's going to be through fall camp and probably early in the season. Like, where are these pieces going to go? Because, you have so much versatility with the buck position and the DN position. The kind of different looks you can give, but it also is kind of like gives you that, as Muschamp talked about, we have a ton of unknowns. Just where are guys going to go? Who's going to be who's going to fill each role, the way they need to. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. Shameik Blackshear, he's an interesting story. He had all I heard was he had a great spring, and he's a guy that they're looking for to kind of step up. I don't know if you remember this, Tyler. All I can think about when I think of Shameik Blackshear was after the LSU game in 2015 when he tweeted about how he should have looked around and that you should listen to your parents and stuff.
Oh, man, that was him?
That was him, yeah.
That.
I wasn't sure if that was him, and I looked back and Googled it, and it was him. And I was like, wow. Man. He's come a long way.
He definitely has. He's been through a lot.
But, hey, if he's going to produce, it's good to have him. So I think Muschamp is much better as well than Spurrier about pulling the best out of those kind of guys. Defensive guy too. That's not something I'm really worried about. I mean, people change. It's been 2 years. So,
right.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be. It's going to have to be some guys we're not even talking about right now, or some of those younger guys we just mentioned to have to step up and generate a pass rush. So moving on to the linebacker position, which Tyler, I think is maybe the most skilled position on the defense. The only thing that scares me about this unit's depth, and I kind of talked about that in had a preview of them this week on ArmchairAmeriCans.com. But you get the return of Sky Moore. We've briefly talked about it, but Tyler, just talk about what it's going to mean for the South Carolina defense to have Sky Moore back, a leader, a veteran player, a senior at his position, led South Carolina in tackling, I think, all 3 years he played. I think I know he's double-digit in interceptions career. I think it's like 12 or 13, something crazy like that. How's your feeling? How much more confident, I'll ask you, do you feel on the defense with Sky Moore coming back?
A lot more comfortable, because I think more importantly than for Sky Moore, I think it takes a lot of the pressure off Bryson Allen Williams. And if he can just kind of step back and relax a little bit, because, he was everywhere on the defense last year. And Sky Moore can do a little bit more of that this year, and BAW can kind of just focus on himself a little bit. And I think he'll have a lot more year, and it'll benefit from the both of them.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've talked about before as well, Sky Moore kind of serving as the quarterback of that defense, at least that linebacker core, that front seven. I think it's going to benefit huge to have Sky back. I'm really interested to see, how he's going to return from the injury. Obviously, when you're dealing with a neck, it's a little, scary to come back from. But everything I've heard of Sky, he's head down, ready to go, 100%, hitting full on. So, as long as he's good to go, that's all I really care about. I think he'll come right back to himself. And honestly, even if he's 90% of what he was, it's still better than any other option. So,
hell yeah,
I completely agree with you with Bryson Allen Williams. He's an interesting guy to me. I think he's the kind of guy that, obviously was really highly recruited, Under Armour All-American game. I'm not sure that he's ever really found his fit yet on this defense, and I'm hoping with him being older now with Sky Moore, the defensive mind that is Will Muschamp, having him at the buck position. They were talking today, I think it was that Bryson. It was today. T-Rob was talking about Bryson on Wednesday. He's the kind of guy that can get in the three-point stance. He can rush standing up. There's a lot of different ways to use him. If they use him correctly, I think he's a guy that could create a lot of havoc, be a guy that can generate a great rush as well as cover in the secondary. So be interesting to see how they use him.
Last year.
He played really well last year. I thought something was funny, too. I watched his media availability day. He's like the most positive guy you ever listen to.
He really is. He really is.
Every time he's talking, he's like so pumped. Like it's awesome to listen to
I
him.
think he gets that from his mom. If you've ever seen her on Twitter.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I think we actually follow her. So, yeah, and then also another person that the staff is high on that maybe we're not talking about is T.J. Brunson. I've heard a ton of rave reviews about him. Played a little bit last year. Yeah, he's a guy I think that hopefully he's like another Sky Moore. So, what's kind of your take on T.J. Brunson? How he fits in as the number 3 linebacker there?
I like him. He played well last year. A lot of people are excited about him. I mean, I hate to keep saying that, but I mean that's what we've seen. The guys that you hear a lot about in these coaches talking, I mean, they're not saying their name just because they want to. I mean, if they've really showed something, that's something to be excited about.
Absolutely, yeah. And as I talked before, the only thing that worries me about this position is just, I mean, because behind those 3 guys, you've got guys like Brad Johnson and Antoine Wilder, guys that really haven't played a lot, if any at all. So it'll be interesting to see sort of the the rotation that the coaches use, the Muschamp uses, and everything of that nature. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. Moving on to the secondary, I definitely think this is a unit that should be improved from last year. You bring a lot of guys back. An example, Jamarcus King, Chris Lamons, DJ Smith at safety, Steven Montag, who played a ton last year. So it's going to be really interesting. Then you add in some young guys like Jamias Williams, some guys we've been really high on. Tyler, how's kind of your overall of the secondary coming into the fall camp and in the season as well?
I like that we've got 2 guys that we can be really excited about between Jamias and Jalen Dickerson. Jalen Dickerson's probably what we've heard the most of out of anybody from this past class. I liked what I heard. They were talking about, I don't remember who asked, and I haven't heard much about it at all. But they were asking if Jamias Williams would be a part of the offense. And T-Rob was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" kind of look, which is good because that means they're really excited that he's going to be able to play this year. But that's one of those guys that I'm excited to see when they get pads on, what we hear about him. Because I think he could have a huge role on the defense. I don't think he'll start, obviously. I think Jalen Dickerson has a better chance of starting. But if we can get some production out of both of them, both of the new guys and the existing guys, I think the secondary could surprise us a lot because there were a lot of times last year they let me down.
Yeah, Jalen Dickerson's a guy I'm definitely high on. I've heard a ton of big things about him. I think he'll actually be one of the bigger surprises in the secondary on the defense as a whole. I'm just as excited as you are about Jamias Williams. He's kind of the wild card, in my opinion. I don't really expect him to start day one. I think that's asking a lot of a true freshman, but it wouldn't really be the worst situation because obviously we're going to get way more into NC State in a couple of weeks, kind of previewing them, but I don't think they're really a pass-heavy team. I don't think they're even a spread team, or they don't really – they serve me more as like a running team, correct?
Balanced, yeah. They run it down your throat type team.
Yeah. Right.
Which isn't good.
All I was going to say – yeah, all I can say to that is there anybody for Jamias Williams to kind of get his feet wet against, at least you're not going up against like a spread, throw it down the field every play. He's not going to get
like South Florida.
right. He's not going to get tested quite as badly.
That's a really good point.
I definitely think he's going to play a lot in that NC State game. I just don't – I mean, he's too good of a player, I think, to not see the field, and 2, I don't think they're deep enough to keep him off the field. If that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking for a big improvement from Jamarcus King as well. They said he gained some weight in the offseason. I think about 15 pounds to be more, more physical and deal with the more physical receivers in the conference, and obviously outside the conference that South Carolina plays. So it'll be interesting to see his improvement as well because I think coming from DC football. You could see the transition last year he had to make.
He was one of the most inconsistent guys that I've seen in a while on our defense because you had games like the Tennessee game where he just completely dominated, and then you had games like Clemson where he just gets absolutely torched. It's kind of scary, but I think he'll be okay. Like you said, just kind of after having a year and seeing all that stuff he saw, I think he'll get less torched this year.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And then I think Chris Lamons on the other side, I think he's a guy that, will continue to impress. I imagine he'll have his best season this year as long as he can keep his composure. That was obviously something I think he fought last year, a couple of games where he unfortunate situations where he got tossed for either targeting or something that happened. But I think he'll have a really, really big year for South Carolina. He also, I was watching highlights from that South Florida game he actually mentioned today, and got reminded of the great punt return that he had in the South Florida game that was late in the fourth quarter. So I think they'll use him a lot as well. I think they have a lot of options in the secondary. Muschamp's really high on a guy like DJ Smith. Said he had his best camp so far in the spring, and he's bringing that to the fall. So, but the biggest thing for me, Tyler, and we'll kind of move just to overall view of the defense in general, is really, and the thing that Muschamp preaches is bringing that physicality back to the defense, bringing those heavy hitters back, in the run game, in the pass game, making guys be almost, I know they don't have this a lot in football anymore due to the rules being for offense, but having guys scared to come across the middle, having guys scared to run through the holes, run into your defense. So I think it'll be really interesting to see, and they're going to get a heck of a test out of the gate week one. When NC State, who's a big physical, really physical team, comes, faces South Carolina and Charlotte. And if South Carolina's not ready to play, they're going to get pushed around.
Oh, yeah.
So, it'll be really interesting to see. But, Tyler, just this last week, what kind of would be your overall synopsis of this defensive unit? What do you think we're going to be talking about come season's end? What do you think how do you think the defense will perform, in 2017? What are you looking for?
Oh, I don't remember what I said last week about the offense, but I think I would like the linebackers to live up to our expectations because, if our linebackers play well, like they're halfway capable of, I think they'll make the rest of the defense better. I'd like to not be looking back at the defensive line and being wrong about that because, last year they were pretty bad. So if we could get more pressure on the quarterback this year, I saw on the script it was the bend but don't break. I freaking hate that mentality because it's so brutal to watch. Last year, was it the East Carolina game where the dude had like 23 catches and they were all just over the middle and they were just giving.
Well, they had almost 500 yards of offense, and they only scored 16 points or something.
Exactly. That was the
hit 4 red zone turnovers.
Explanation of bend but don't break, and that's the only time it's ever freaking worked. It feels like, but it's exhausting to watch our secondary just give up 10, 15 yards because they don't want to play on the ball. So I'd like to see the defense play on the ball a little bit more, put more pressure on guys to run better routes and not just give it to them.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's a little frustrating. I just think it's almost the reality for South Carolina right now that, unfortunately, teams are going to get there.
Last year it definitely was.
And you have to improve. If you want to be, as we talked about last week, if you want to chase the goals and reach the aspirations, you want to beat the East, win the state, beat the East, win the state, you got to stop the run. You can't give up 200 rushing yards per game and expect to have a really South Carolina really benefited last year. They were one of the top teams in turnover margin, and I think that's going to be another huge, huge key this year is that, I liked what T-Rob said today in his media availability. He said, we don't like 3 and outs. We like 1 and outs. We want to get the ball. We want to be aggressive and get the ball. So you could definitely tell last year that defense really took on that mantra and took on that personality he provided about, get the ball, get the ball, get the ball. But, Tyler, I think the really interesting thing is, with this team and this defense, this defense knows they've got a really, really good offense coming this season or, what's supposed to be a really good offense. They're going against this offense every single day. With that offensive firepower, the Gamecocks have come back. What do you think South Carolina really needs out of this defense? Because personally, I don't think they have to be perfect. That's what I mean sort of by the bend but don't break mentality. South Carolina, they're going to give up their yards, but if they can bow up and hold teams to field goals instead of touchdowns, it's kind of like what Steve Spurrier used to say. That's how you really get beat. We prefer touchdowns over field goals because when you kick field goals, you get beat. So what do you think really this team needs out of the defense to have a really good season? Because I don't think it's as much as maybe – I don't think it's as much as maybe those 2012, 2011 teams needed.
Right. Oh, man. Say that one more time. What was your question?
I'm just saying, what do you think the South Carolina really needs out of the defense?
Okay.
In thinking that with
the
offense
times
they
last
have,
year where teams just completely dominated because they
I think we just got Tyler back. Here we go.
There
All right, Tyler, go ahead. Sorry, we had a little break there. Go ahead.
I'm saying there was a lot of times last year where teams would get 3rd and longs, and it would look like we're about to get the ball back, and then they would just effortlessly get 15 yards, 15 yards, 15 yards, stuff like that. I mean, you can't just give up 3rd and longs and let teams go on long drives, because if we get the ball back, I mean, it's looking like our offense will be able to score some points if we could just give them opportunities and good field position.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, like you were saying, it's more those demoralizing conversions and demoralizing long.
Right, and you lose all momentum.
Absolutely, yeah, and the longer that had Jake Bentley and company has to sit on the sideline, you get cold over there. So, and as we mentioned, that's going to be a huge emphasis week 1 with the NC State team that does like to run the ball. From what I've heard, they don't move particularly fast in the days of the hurry up offense. They tend to be pretty methodical. T-Rob actually compared them to Arkansas, which we're not huge fans of Arkansas.
Absolutely not.
It'll be really interesting to see how the defense comes out. But I think it's just going to be all about turnovers, winning the turnover margin. I think that's pretty much a given in football, but definitely for this defense, maybe a defense that's not going to be as, suffocating as some others. You're going to have to make up for it in turnovers and big plays. So, I think overall this defense, I think they're going to struggle early on. But I do think we're going to see some solid progression and kind of, second half of the year really see, what we're hoping for. Hopefully it'll come a little bit sooner than I'm expecting, but that's kind of what I see going forward. So with that being said, we're going to get into a couple listener questions. We do have listener questions for you guys this week. This comes from one of our buddies on Reddit. Tennessee was supposed to easily beat South Carolina last, but actually this comes from our buddy, one of our writers at Armchair, actually. Excuse me. Tennessee was supposed to easily beat South Carolina last year, but didn't, which makes Butch Jones 0-4 against Muschamp now. I did not know that. Thoughts on how the game might play out this year in Knoxville, especially with Tennessee having a new running back and quarterback? Tyler, I'll let you answer that one first.
All right. So was the coaches poll? Did that come out today or yesterday?
That did come out today, this morning, I believe.
I was completely dumbfounded at how Tennessee is ranked in the top 25. I mean, I feel like they're losing everybody, and I don't feel like they replaced enough to be considered a ranked team, because I didn't feel like they were deserving of a ranked team last year. I mean, you can't lose to South Carolina and Vanderbilt and then lose your quarterback, your best linebacker, running back, all that, and still be ranked. It blew my mind.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely agree with you here. I'm glad we actually agree on that. I was dumbfounded to see Tennessee in the top 25. I don't know if it's an SEC respect thing or what it is, but I completely agree with you. I mean, also you got to think Texas was in the top 25 of the coaches poll, and they went 5-7 last year and lost to Kansas. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see what the AP poll has, but I was floored just like you were that Tennessee was there.
Yeah.
It's always tough going to Knoxville. And there's a lot of unknowns. There's some unknowns with South Carolina. There's a lot of unknowns with Tennessee. And the Tennessee faithful are, let's just say getting tired of Butch Jones and kind of his coach speak deal, if you will. So I think that's going to be a really competitive game. It's a game that I would not be shocked to see South Carolina win it all. I think I'll probably reserve my prediction until the week of, but
I will too, but I think now we got it. You have to say it.
Yeah. At worst, At worst, it's a toss-up game. At absolute worst, just because it's on the road in Knoxville, and until this team proves to me that they can play on the road in a hostile environment, it's the only reason I'd have it as a toss-up. But I think South Carolina has pretty much caught up and even with Tennessee, and should, if they can win this year, jump ahead of Tennessee. So
the only other thing I'm scared about Tennessee is that they're going to have this mentality like we kind of have with Kentucky right now, because we completely ruined their season last year. That's the other thing I'm scared about, because I know I would hate to be a Kentucky fan on whatever day we play Kentucky.
Yeah, it's crazy to me how pumped I am for that game. I feel like
me too.
It's becoming one of those games where we have to beat Kentucky. Right, exactly. Yeah, so be interesting. I mean, Neyland will be rocking, but like I said, I agree with you. I think at worst is the toss-up, and at that, I think South Carolina should. Right, if they played today, I'd pick South Carolina to get the win.
I would too.
So these are some of the Reddit questions we actually got. Who gets more tackles, Sky Moore or Bryson Allen Williams? Tyler, I'm going to go ahead and answer this one. Sky Moore, I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
I think Sky Moore is going to return to form this year. I mean, when he played, he led the team in tackles every season he was on the field. I don't see that changing. I actually watched just before this a little bit of tape just a little bit of Sky Moore highlights, and the way he flies around the field and is in every play is just, it's something special. It's something that not every player has. I think Bryson Williams is going to have a great season.
I think he'll force a lot of turnovers this year.
Right, yeah. I think he'll be a force. Yeah, I think he'll be a disruptive force, but overall tackles, I got to go with Sky Moore.
Yeah.
So another question here from Reddit. What's Brunson going to be like? Obviously referencing TJ Brunson, the linebacker. He also says, I'm sure everyone is too hyped about the other two linebackers to get Brunson his due.
Right.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, Tyler, with TJ Brunson, kind of what he can bring to the table. Just in the limited action, we've obviously seen him, so I'll just kind of brush over this one. But in the limited action we've seen him, I definitely think the sky's the limit for him. I mean, I think he's a guy that can give an immediate impact right now. And I think he's in a great situation because he's going to be learning from one of the best in Sky Moore, and he's got a veteran beside him.
Polished.
Yeah, exactly. So he doesn't have to – it's not like there's three freshmen starting. He's got help around him. So he's going to get put in the right spot on every play. It's not something – he's going to get put in the right position. So I think the sky's the limit for him. Moving on, Tyler, something you kind of referenced earlier. Shameik Blackshear was supposed to be the second coming of Clowney. When will he start to produce?
I feel like that was a very, very unfair comparison, whoever made that. But I do remember how high everyone was on him. Like we said, he's been through a lot. But the fact that he's still here and on the team, I think that says a lot for what he's gone through and what he's done. So I would look for him to have a good year or just progress. I mean, he's so physical and so big. I think just his presence will say a lot on the D-line.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I talked about. Yeah, no, Clowney. Yeah, I think that's, like you said, that's that's an unreal comparison. That's not even fair to anybody. But, no, I think Shameik Blackshear, like you said, I think it does say a lot. He's grown up. His character probably is, improved and everything, and I don't think he'd be here if it hadn't. And I think Coach, Will Muschamp's the kind of guy that no-nonsense type of guy, but he's also a player's coach. And I think if there's anybody that could pull out, the potential that he has, I think it's going to be Muschamp. And they've obviously been high on him, like I mentioned earlier. So it'll be really interesting to see how they're able to use him and see if he can step up and, become a disruptive force on the end for Carolina this year. And then the last question comes again from Reddit. How will Coach Boom and others leave their mark on this group? Tyler, I'll let you go first on that one, actually.
More physicality. Like I said, I think that toughness was missing last year, and I think they've accounted for that this year. I hope they have, at least. That's what I would look for him to leave his mark on. We'll see a lot more of a physical team on both sides of the ball than we saw last year.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I mean, the mantra they've taken, effort, toughness, discipline. Like you said, I think the effort was definitely there last year. I think they lacked a little bit of toughness, but I think everyone is bought in. You listen to everybody talk. They're all really positive, and Coach Muschamp, as we know, I think, nobody would knock him at Florida for not having players that didn't love the guy, didn't play hard for him, didn't appreciate what he did. I think his only criticism was he didn't have an offense, and he has that this year, and he has his quarterback. So, in specifics to the defense, I think you're going to see a really flying around group, really tough, again, discipline, kind of just going back over the
sounds cliche, but I really mean that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think you're going to see this defense get better every single year. And I'm personally, I'm worried about the defense. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little worried, but I'm also excited to see the steps because I think this defense will take positive steps this year. And who knows how, if they get a pass rush, this defense could be really good. So,
yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see. But with that being said, that's going to pretty much wrap us up. We will be back next week going over the little bit into the special teams because that is going to be a big question mark, Tyler, as we know. But also going to start breaking down the schedule, looking ahead to what will be the season, kind of look into the SEC, some other teams around the league, really start diving in. But, with that being said, I think that's about all we have. Again, if you do want to follow us, go to iTunes, rate, subscribe, leave us your comments, tell us what you like and don't like. We appreciate all feedback. Again, our Twitter account, Armchair SCAR, that's Armchair SCAR. And again, go to Armchair All-Americans, check out the podcast, check out all of the content there, including our South Carolina coverage. So with that being said, Tyler, do you have any last words, anything you want to say?
Baseball-wise, Justin Smoke and Steve Pierce are freaking monsters. That's all I'll say.
Baseball. I can't believe we forgot about baseball. Yeah, Steve Pierce, 2 grand slams in a span of 3 days. 2 walk-off grand slams. He's the first player, I think, what'd they say? Or no, he's the third player maybe to hit 2 walk-off grand slams in his career, and he did it in the span of 3 days. Some crazy number like that. Yeah, some crazy number like that. So did it in the span of 3 days.
I feel like Smoke has homered every day this week, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so it's great to see the former Carolina guys.
Yeah.
Some of the guys from those, as we talked about before, those great eras kind of, having great seasons. So I mean,
forgotten about for some reason.
Steve Pierce. Yeah, Steve Pierce is a guy. I mean, he's from like the early 2000s teams. So
I remember going to Sarge Fry, and we were playing like Ole Miss. It was probably 3 series into the SEC play, and he was batting like 570. It completely blew my mind.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah, he was.
Those were good times.
He was nasty. Yeah. So, but yeah, I will actually say, we can make this the post show, dude. The coaches poll I thought was insane. Was there anybody you thought? I mean, were there any others? Obviously, I thought Tennessee was crazy.
Let me pull it up because I just looked at it to see Tennessee.
Texas was crazy too. I was going to say, was there anybody
it's
else?
It's important to talk about this.
Yeah, it is. The Clemson was 5th. I know you had Bama at 1, Ohio State 2. I think Southern Cal was
Florida State
4.
3.
Florida State 3,
USC,
right.
Then
okay.
Clemson 5th. Penn State, Washington, Oklahoma, Michigan, and Wisconsin to round out the top 10. Then we have Oklahoma State, LSU, Auburn, Stanford, Georgia, Florida, Louisville, Miami, Kansas State, West Virginia, and then South Florida, Virginia Tech, Texas, Tennessee, and Utah. South Florida's a good team.
Man. South Florida's a good team, man.
They
have their quarterback back?
Oh, yeah. They returned just about everybody.
Quentin Flowers, he's nasty.
Yes.
He's nasty. So, yeah, I mean,
I've seen a lot about Oklahoma State, too, just from our guys here at Armchair. A lot of guys have Oklahoma State really, really high, which I refuse to buy into, by the way. But apparently they have one of the best wide receiver cores in the nation, and everyone's freaking out.
Yeah, they're going to be just another typical Big 12 team playing basketball on grass, basically, just no defense. So, I mean, it'll be interesting fighting between them and Oklahoma. Kind of see how the Big 12 shakes out. I thought it was really interesting that, obviously in the coaches poll, Clemson got 7 first-place votes, and they were 5th. Southern Cal was 4th,
wow.
Didn't get any. And then Florida State got 4. So Clemson got the second most first-place votes and was 5th. So,
also interesting, Georgia is one above Florida, and everyone pretty much has Florida winning the East.
Yeah, I think those two are a toss-up. I think right now, we'll get into it next week, but I think right now I have to probably get Georgia, but who knows? Hopefully South Carolina, but yeah, I thought everything else besides that was pretty solid with the coaches top 25, but it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. We all know about preseason polls and really the significance they have, which is 0 most of the time. So, but
still fun.
Anyway, yeah, absolutely. So, anyways, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Go watch some preseason football. Get your football take in. We're getting closer. But with that being said, again, he's Tyler Clark. I'm Chris Phillips. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll catch you next time on the Spurs Up Show.